Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be showing you all the supplies I plan to use for Inktober 2017. So, Inktober is a challenge created by Jake Parker in which you draw in ink every day for the month of October. I will link his video down below if you're interested in more information. Jake Parker posts prompts for each day and I will be following his prompts, but I'm also going to add the limitation of having my own personal theme for the entire month. The theme that I've chosen is Cabinets of Curiosity. Curiosity cabinets were the precursors to museums in Renaissance Europe. So before we had binomial nomenclature, before we had natural history, archaeology, we had cabinets of curiosity, and they were personal collections of people who would travel the world and find different skeletons, different relics, and they would take them home and put them together in a collection. And I will be drawing items that would kind of go in my collection if I were one of these European Renaissance wealthy people, basically. So I'm going to put all those drawings in that Bristol book, and it's going to be not so much a sketchbook as a collection of finished drawings. So I'll be drawing all of those objects with just a regular HB graphite pencil. The paper I'm using is very smooth, so I don't want to use a softer pencil that's going to smear everywhere. I'll be using this pencil sharpener for that, and the pencil is really just to lay down my basic sketches and shapes before I go in with ink, so I'm not too concerned about the pencils I'm using. I'll be mainly erasing all the pencil lines. Normally I like to use Prismacolor coal erase pencils to do all my sketches, but because I don't want any pencil to show through, and I'll be erasing all of it, I don't want to use those because they don't really erase entirely. So I will just be using regular pencil and using a ruler if I need any straight edges. If I need to transfer any sketches over to the Bristol notebook there, I will be using this light box. I'll have this and all the other supplies linked down below if you're interested in any of it. This one was pretty cheap on Amazon. So the most important part of this challenge is obviously the ink. So my latest obsession has been brush pens. A brush pen is like a regular pen in that it has a reservoir of ink and it's shaped like a pen, but the actual brush of the pen is made with real bristles, so it's not like a felt tip or anything, it's an actual brush. This first one is the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen. It's very popular. You can get very fine lines and thick lines with it. I find it to be a little bit floppy and hard to work with for fine details. It's definitely possible, I'm not up to that skill level quite yet. But here you can see I have very, very thin lines, and then if I press down, then I get a much thicker line weight. And this pen actually runs very wet, so it can be a little bit hard to get a controlled line, not just because of the shape of the pen, but because of the nature of the ink flow. But it's very good for very clean lines because it is such a wet ink pen. The second one here is the Pentel Pigment ink pen, and this one is my favorite. It's very flexible and it will hug the curves of your line much more gracefully. So if you're doing more of a circular shape, it will follow that shape rather than doing unexpected little edges the way that the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen works for me. And again, you can do everything that you would need to do with that first pen if you're skilled enough to use it that way. It's just a little bit more difficult to get those finer details with that one. So this pen is a little bit drier. You have to squeeze the body of the pen to get the ink to come down, whereas the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen up top there is a gravity feed system. So this pen, you can get very fine lines. It's a little bit finer in general than the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen. And as you can see, if you press the brush down sideways on the paper, it doesn't have quite as thick of a shape that will come down, so it kind of shows that it is a finer, smaller brush. And then this third pen is the newest one that I've added to my collection. It's the Kuretake number 8, and so far it seems to be kind of a happy medium between those first two pens I showed. So it's not quite as floppy and not quite as wet as the top pen, but it's not quite as dry and fine as the middle pen there. So I think I'll be really enjoying using this one. I like to use these three pens in conjunction with each other because, like I said, for my skill level, I am not able to do everything I need to do with just one pen. It's a lot easier to use a finer pen for a finer detail and a broader pen for areas that I need to be very clean and have very thick lines, or just a filled in black area. Now for any very fine details that I don't need a very line weight, I will be using Micron technical pens, and this one is the .005. It's extremely fine. It's like a hair. And I'm also showing the .02, the .05, and the graphic 1, which is pretty much just a felt tip marker if I need to fill in any areas with black, but I don't want to necessarily get out a brush pen or a brush and ink or anything like that. So those will definitely be coming in handy. And if I do need to use a brush, an actual brush with India ink, it will be this one. This is the Winsor & Newton University series round brush, number 000, so it's the very smallest brush that they have. And to compare with my smallest brush pen, it's, as you can see, even smaller than that. So this will help me get even finer details, and it is pretty flexible too, so I'm able to do more curved lines with this brush than I'm able to get with my brush pens. Also fairly new is these Daler Rowney Acrylic Inks. This one is the Flesh Tint. I'll have a video coming up soon where I show how to mix skin tones with acrylic inks. This one is the Emerald Green. So I'm going to be using these for any color. This is the Sepia tone, the Process Cyan. I think a lot of my drawings are going to end up being just black and white, but I can use these acrylic inks. They're opaque enough for using for line work, and also you can mix them just like paints and use them to color pictures. So then there was the magenta, and then the last one is the crimson, I believe, and Process Yellow. So I'm very excited to take this month to really get to know the medium of acrylic inks a little bit better. So these are mainly the materials I'll be using, and then I'm going to show some more that I might use here and there, but these that I've just shown are like the workhorses of Inktober for me. So this is the India ink that I prefer. This is what I'll be using mainly with this brush. If you were to only need just a couple items for Inktober, I know I'm showing quite a lot of stuff here. If you only needed a few, I would recommend just a very fine round brush like this, a pencil, and India ink. Speedball is my favorite India ink. It's very, very black, and it has a very pretty sheen to it, which is very similar to the types of ink that they put in brush pens. So it works very well if you need to fill in a large area with the bottled ink and then do all of your lines with the brush pens. It works great. These are Prismacolor Fineliner pens in different colors. If I want just one line, one color line for my line work, then I might use these. Honestly, I probably won't use them very much, but I figured I would show them anyway if you're interested in such a thing. These are my Tombow brush pens. They're like a water-based felt tip marker, basically. And these are some of my favorite colors that I have. I don't like them so much for coloring in large areas because, as you can see, you kind of get those marker lines from every stroke of the marker shows its own lines. So these are really good for little areas that I need to add a bit of color, but not so great for coloring in large areas. I think I'll use my acrylic inks for that. So this is my Platinum Preppy fountain pen. The ink I have in this is a Noodler's black ink. This pen has a little bit of flexibility to it, so you can get very fine lines. I think this is the fine nib that I have on it. So you can use it to feather in very fine lines. And if you press down, then the tines of the nib will spread apart and will create a much thicker, broader line. So it gets almost as fine as that .005 Sakura Micron pen there, and it gets almost as broad as the graphic Micron pen. So really I could just use this one pen instead of all my Microns, and it would do just about as good of a job. Actually, I like the way that it lays ink down on a page a little bit better than Microns. It's a little smoother, and I just love any excuse to use fountain pens because it's just a superior experience to use a fountain pen nib rather than like any other kind of pen, in my opinion. This is the ink that I have in there right now. It's Noodler's, it's called X Feather, and it's just a black ink. It's a very beautiful ink. It's very, very dark, and it has a sheen to it that's similar to India ink. The only problem with that ink is it's not waterproof, which is kind of a bummer. This is another fountain pen. This one just came for free when I bought that ink that I just showed, and it's not writing right now because I actually have India ink in this pen. If you know anything about fountain pens, you're probably freaking out because you're really not supposed to put India ink in a fountain pen. But this pen was free, and I find that if I just run the nib under some water for a second, then it does clear it out and I'm able to use it, and it works fine after that. So this is a Pentel Aqua brush. So it's basically just a watercolor brush that has a reservoir that you can put water in, and you squeeze it to get the water to come down, just like the Pentel pen that I showed right here. Instead of water though, I've actually put some ink in there. The brush tip is very comparable to the Pentel brush that I'm holding up there. It's very, very fine and very flexible, so it's great for all different kinds of line work. And you can control the ink flow by squeezing the barrel of the pen. The ink that I have in here is absolutely beautiful. It has a lot of shading to it, which means that it's a fountain pen ink that can get very light or very dark depending on how much you put on the page. And it's Diamine Sherwood Green is the ink that I have in there. So yeah, tons of stuff, but really the main items that I will be using are my brush pens, my acrylic inks, my India ink, my pencil, and my Winsor & Newton brush. So I hope this was informative and interesting. Let me know if you're going to be participating in Inktober. Please leave me a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe because I'm going to be showing lots of Inktober videos. Also, really quick, I just wanted to give a shout out to my friend Carol. She actually sent me this piece of artwork and I absolutely love it. I love green and blue together, so I'm going to be putting that up in my studio. And yeah, I'm going to link her channel down below, so subscribe to her if you would like to see more of her artwork. So thank you so much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.